Welcome back to the Whatnauts review show number 293, where each and every episode we have a new story to talk about. It could be a movie, a TV show, anime, comic book, all sorts of stuff. We read it, we watch it, we come back here and talk about it. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined by Melissa Wilkinson. Melissa, how are you?
I'm real proud of you for saying every episode and not every week. Now that we've switched to our bi-weekly schedule.
I thought about it before we started recording. I had to make sure, but here we are at like end of May, and I don't remember if I've been saying it correctly the past like handful of months. Who knows? I could have been saying each and every week. But I made a conscious effort this time. So thank you. What have you been up to, Melissa?
I'm starting a new job tomorrow. So I've spent the weekend doing silly things like pre-making all of my breakfasts for the week, organizing my closet, just trying to like shave any bit of administrative detail of my life down so I can just focus on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know, like, is your commute time about the same? Is it shorter? Is it longer?
Oh, no. I come from a job where nobody cared what you looked like, and I lived 3 minutes away. And now I have, like, a commute of a good, like, 15, 20, 25 minutes.
Okay, that's
and I
not bad.
really have to look nice because I'm in a client-facing position. So it's the extra commute time, the extra traffic time, and no, you do have to, like, everything is you can't just throw something on and be like, that's fine. I'm okay. Like, I have to put on makeup. It's not just I do it because I want to. I mean, if they decided not to, I don't think they'd come after me, but it is part of my job to put my best foot forward, present my best face to the client in this new role. So I got to show up nice and shiny every morning.
Understandable. Yeah, my partner just had to buy a bunch of new outfits because they changed their dress code at work, so it's now a little bit more fancy, even though like she's like her department is also not really client facing. So it was strange that they mandated that. But anyways, we're not here to talk about dress codes and commutes and all of that stuff. We are here actually for the 65th anniversary of North by Northwest, Alfred Hitchcock's spy thriller that came out in 1959. Melissa and I both had the opportunity to go say it. I guess they re-released it as a like Fathom event in movie theaters. I don't think I've been to a proper Fathom event. I've been to a few like re-releases of stuff, especially some anime films and stuff like that. But I don't think one that was like truly like this is a Fathom event.
I am happy that we have the Fathom events, and they're prevalent enough that even if it's not that, somebody understands what you mean when you're like, it's a Fathom event type thing.
Right, yeah. So yeah, I got to go see that today. It was oddly both showing at the same time in our respective states. So we saw the movie at the same time.
Yeah, you were at, I presume, your Regal Theater you like there in Oklahoma City. I was at a Marcus Theater here in St. Louis.
Yeah, it was at the one we took you to when you came down to visit.
The fancy one.
Yeah. Older theater, which tends to be the one that they reserve for some of the events like this. So it's like regular seats. You don't have the nice recliners or the like heated seats, but it was like your old-fashioned regular theater seats.
That's got charm.
But, yeah, still good. What was your experience like going to see this? Had you seen this film before at all?
I hadn't seen this one.
Okay. So
this was a movie. This was a movie that had been on our list of possible review show topics, or more, it was a Hitchcock. You just wrote down a Hitchcock, and I'm like, well, here's one I haven't seen that I think I'd like. And then miraculously, we had this simultaneously anniversary screening we could both go see today, which is not something we've done before on the review show, but I'm happy we gave it a shot, catching a movie
absolutely.
in theaters at the same time. I went to see this with my mom, and unfortunately, we were running a couple minutes late. So I don't know if there was any sort of introduction at the beginning or if it just started.
I'm assuming the same thing happened for you then, because ours started like right at 1:00. And it was strange because I didn't even realize the movie was starting. I just thought there was some other kind of advertisement or something, but we had no previews, no advertisement. It just started, and then I saw Cary Grant's name on screen. I was like, oh, I guess this is it. It started, huh? And they hadn't turned the lights down yet, so the lights were still on. Someone had to go and be like, hey guys, the lights are still on in here, and the movie already started. What's up?
They're probably on a timer for like the estimated block of trailers.
Probably, yeah.
I missed the first couple minutes and then had to watch it on Tubi later when I got home.
Okay.
But I have seen all of it now, all of North by Northwest. I had a good time. I told my dad we were going to go do this, and he's like, the movie drags a little bit in some parts. But I was really entertained the whole time. It really moves. It's never in one place for that long. It's got great variety. I was the youngest person in our audience by decades.
Yes, us too. We were the youngest for sure.
Which is kind of fun. I go to a lot of matinees, so I am frequently in an audience of mostly older folks. They're always well behaved, and it's fun when they get really into something, like the guy who's just shouting, yeah, at the climax of Challengers when I went to see that the other week.
Amazing. Good stuff. Yeah, that's seemed to be our experience too. But yeah, we had a good time with this. I had seen this one before. I've seen a number of Alfred Hitchcock's movies. But this one in particular, this and Vertigo, I know I've seen both of them. I couldn't, like, as of earlier today, I couldn't tell you a thing about either of them because I just didn't really remember. And then re-watching this, it kind of came to me as it was happening. I was like, oh yeah, Mount Rushmore. I forgot about that, but it's in here. Yeah, okay, I remember that. So yeah, I had seen this one before, but didn't remember a thing. My partner, who also watched it with me, she had never seen it before. So it was a new experience for her. But we really enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. I do see kind of what your dad is saying, that it does kind of drag a little bit in the first two acts. But what I thought was interesting is each act of this movie is almost in a different genre. Like it starts out and it's kind of a comedy. It's this case of mistaken identity to this like drunk driving scene, which is kind of comical, and his whole time in the police station there. And then the second act is this kind of exciting romance. It's like there's like spy stuff happening in the background, but it is the on-screen chemistry between the two actors. And then, yeah, by far the third and final act just kind of takes off like a rocket. It's a spy thriller, action, crime noir, all sorts of stuff. So it is certainly an exciting film. One I recommend if you're interested, you have not seen it before, go check it out.
It's free on Tubi.
There you go. Good stuff. Good stuff indeed. Plot synopsis. For those who might want a basic plot synopsis, I already kind of hinted at it. But do you want to do a plot synopsis, or would you like me to?
I already said sure. Cary Grant is a Madison Avenue ad exec here in the year 1959. He's doing all his Mad Men stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he is abducted into a car by these mysterious men and taken to some huge mansion. They're like, yes, it's you, Mr. Kepler, Mr. Kaplan, whatever. And he's like, no, that's not me. My name is Roger Thornhill. And they're like, haha, you play the role so well. You really live up to your secret identity.
That
And
sounds
he's
like
no
something Kepler would say.
right. Nobody believes him that he's like,
Yeah.
you have the wrong man. So he gets wrapped up in this. They frame him they try and kill him. He's framed for a crime. Nobody believes his story. He has to go on the run. It's this journey from all sorts of different parts of America, from the UN building in New York City to just the flat prairie lands of Illinois and Indiana to Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
And he has to figure out why he's been framed, why he got into the situation, and how to save the day and get out of it.
Yeah. Along the way, he meets a beautiful girl that he gets wrapped up with, and finds out she's maybe a little more involved than she's letting on here. So,
Your classic femme fatale.
indeed.
It's all here.
Uh,
Good henchmen.
Yeah, some good henchmen indeed. I liked the cast a lot. This is I saw something. I was as I was skimming the Wikipedia page for this. Apparently, the New York Times or something like that called this a masterpiece of comedic, sophisticated self-parody.
Okay.
Which I don't know if I immediately would have jumped to that phrasing to describe it, but I think that's actually pretty spot on. Like it is. I would wholeheartedly describe this as a spy thriller, but it is also like it has some of the trappings to kind of make fun of that, to kind of poke fun at some of these comedic moments. Even the cast, his lawyer is in the Get Smart TV show. There's stuff like that in there. One of the henchmen, the main guy, the main henchman, such a distinct face. I don't remember that guy's name.
It's Martin Landau.
Martin Landau. Yeah, he's also in the Mission Impossible TV show.
Okay.
Stuff like that. So yeah, like it feels like there is this kind of knowledge of the genre to be like, we're gonna put him in there, we're gonna put him in there, right? And so, I think that hits.
Which is fascinating because when you think of spies, you think of James Bond, and the Bond novels would have been out at this point, but the movie didn't come around until several years afterwards.
Yeah.
And I wanted to watch this one specifically out of Hitchcock's oeuvre because it had been pitched to me as sort of a proto Bond.
Yes. Yeah. Can very much see that. Absolutely. Yeah, I think the only other kind of fun fact that I want to mention here is Ava Marie Saint, who plays Eve Kendall. Who is, as you said, the femme fatale of this movie. She's had a big acting career. She also at one point got to play Martha Kent in Superman Returns.
Oh.
And if you are a fan of The Legend of Korra, she plays Katara, the older version of Katara.
This was also the one association I had with this classic actress's name, is that she was old Katara.
Yeah, which is kind of wild to think about. But then something else that I noticed, and then I pulled up a picture to show my partner. These two, Cary Grant and Eva Marie Saint, have to be the visual inspiration for Don Draper and his wife. January Jones is a spitting image of her. It is wild, just like how spot on she looks exactly like her. So I just thought that was a little fun thing there.
Mm.
And with him being in like an ad exec on Madison Avenue, and it's also just like, hey, I can see the DNA here. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this seems like it was a very influential movie in many different regards.
absolutely. Absolutely. As we mentioned, it was directed by Alfred Hitchcock, written by Ernest Lemon or Layman. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name there, but I would definitely recommend checking it out. It was a good one. With that, though, I say we take a quick break for some housekeeping, and when we come back, we will dive a little bit deeper into the film here. So we will be right back. Thank you so much for checking out this podcast. We hope you're enjoying it. If you didn't know, we make multiple different shows here at the Whatnauts, and a lot of hard work goes into making them, so we would love it if you check them all out. But none of this is possible without your support. Head over to patreon.com/thewhatnauts, and you can get access to over 40 hours of exclusive content, including our Patreon first podcast, The Pilots Club, when you sign up at our $3 tier. Of course, there is a free version of the Pilots Club available, but episodes are exclusive to our Patreon for 2 years before they hit the free feeds. If you're interested in buying merch, we have shirts, hoodies, mugs, and more for sale over at thewhatnauts.com/store. Another great way to help us out is by subscribing and leaving a nice rating and review on your podcasting app of choice. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel for video versions of the show, trailer reactions, and live streams. And lastly, you can always find out more information about the shows we make on our website, thewhatnauts.com. All right, we are back. Once again, a big shout out to our Patreon supporters. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. Over on the Pilots Club, this month we got to talk about the pilot of Pan Am, which stars a young Margot Robbie in that, and kind of depicts a group of women in the ins and outs of the lifestyle of being a stewardess on the Pan Am flights back in the Cold War times, which I guess is I think they mentioned Pan Am once in North by Northwest here. I think it
was the airline of the time, yeah.
Indeed, yeah. So that was a fun one. However, for this next month, be on the lookout because we are going to be talking about the pilot of Amazon Prime's show Bosch, which is at least one of, if not their longest running show on Prime. It's one that I've always kind of known about, and I heard that people generally liked it, but beyond that, it's kind of a mystery. I don't know anything about that show. I don't know why it was so successful. So it will be interesting kind of checking that one out to be like, what is this show?
It's also kind of a mystery in that it is about a detective. It's mysteries.
Right. Yeah. Indeed. Over on the free version of the Pilots Club, we just put out our episode on Yasuke. Which also happens to be incredible timing on our part. Not only did we record an episode on Shogun last month, but the new Assassin's Creed video game you can play as Yasuke.
Wow.
So yeah, kind of wild that we did that one. So good timing on our part. Anyways, right here on the review show, last week we got to talk about, here I go again with the last week. Last episode, we got to talk about the recent Planet of the Apes trilogy. It was a fantastic set of movies for us to watch, and just in time for the new Planet of the Apes film that is out in theaters right now. So yeah, we got to talking about that one over on the Captain's Log, which our previous episode on the Captain's Log, we talked about that. Melissa, you got to talk about the Fall Guy, which I also just went to go see this past week. I liked it a lot. It was fantastic.
Mm.
We talked about dumb things like the spittle ratio going up in Hollywood. You see more and more actors like spitting and crying and snot running down their faces, all sorts of stuff. We talked about some of the recent Fantastic Four casting, all sorts of stuff like that. So yeah, go check out the Captain's Log as well. But that is about it for housekeeping right now. Let's get back into North by Northwest and get into some spoilers. Okay. Spoilers. So you said you missed the first couple minutes when you originally like sat down in the theater. Where did you come in at? I'm curious.
I think right when he's in the car with the guys being taken to the mansion and he says like, okay, so you're abducting me. I can tell what this is. I know when I'm being abducted.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I mean,
so
you didn't miss
I didn't
much.
miss much.
It's like the first 5 minutes.
I didn't feel lost at all. And then afterwards, after we got out of the movie, my mom told me what I missed. And then when I watched the first couple minutes on Tubi, what she described wasn't in there. So I don't know what movie my mom was describing.
Please recount to me what your mom described as the opening of this film.
It wasn't anything strange. She just thought that the movie opened with him and his mom. And I think his mom comes up. He mentions his mom, but he's like at some bar with a couple other guys in suits. And she thought it was that, but he's just talking to his mom and his mom's berating him. And then this happens to him. And then he calls his mom, like, Mom, help. Strangers got me drunk.
I gotcha. Yeah, it's his, like, business. It's like his secretary, right? And she's like,
yes.
Well, like, here's your meetings for the day. What should I do? And yeah, he mentions his mom there to call her. Okay.
Movies with, they'll get up and they'll go to the bathroom and they'll come back and they'll whisper to you, what did I miss? I had a stranger do that to me.
Oh,
a woman I had not made eye contact with, who was sitting several seats away from me, got up, came back, had to walk past me to get to her seat, and asked me, how is he here? How did he find her there? And I said to like try and describe it. I'm like, I don't know you. This isn't my responsibility, ma'am.
I'm being abducted here. I'm just trying to watch a movie.
I was also surprised. Again, these are all
that's funny
AARP eligible folks in the theater with me. I was surprised that this woman apparently had not seen the movie before. I had presumed I was the only newcomer, and it would have been all people who loved this movie when they were younger.
Yeah, interesting.
I guess you're never too old to watch a classic film for the first time.
Sure, why not? Yeah, I mean, it was
in
a great
way to do it.
Yeah,
yeah, and she truly did not miss much. She did pick a good time to go to the bathroom.
Good, cool. Well, yeah, I think the things that stand out to me the most is just how sarcastic this movie is. Like I never remembered this movie being a comedy, and I think it's fair to describe it as one, or
it definitely starts as one.
Comedic at times, right? It is not like a full on comedy, but yeah, so certainly has its moments. Especially in this first act, him at the police station after he's been kidnapped and forced to drink this like giant cup of bourbon.
I love this. I love
stuff.
That these bad guys are trying to. They know that this man isn't cooperative. They still believe that he is who they say he is and not who he says he is. And they're like, fine, if you won't cooperate, we'll kill you. And he won't take any of their drinks. He knows better than that. So they don't put it straight into his mouth. They pour it into a glass first. They pour the whole of this bourbon into a pint glass, and then presumably pour the pint glass, just pry open his mouth and force it down his gullet, which is so quaint a thing to do to somebody. Like, not even drug him or do anything in secret. Like, just pry his mouth open like you have to give a dog medicine and just pour it down there.
Right.
And then they, like, force him into a car. Like, okay, now you go drive. We know you can't. We know you're sloshed. We did that. We sloshed you. You've been sloshed.
It's kind of like in a torture scene where the torturer walks in and just ever so slowly starts like unraveling his tools, checking to make sure the blowtorch still works, all that stuff. Do the pliers still ply, right? Do they still have that? It's them just pouring it into a cup right in front to make sure, yeah, I guess that's still liquid. Huh, okay, yeah, it still works, right?
This is enough to get you severely drunk and fast. And I like that they're just going to put him behind the wheel of a car that presumably they don't care about. They've got a car to spare.
They
and
stole
then drive
it from
behind
the neighbors.
him. Right. And then force him off the road, but he's able to get away, but he's still drunk. And to watch a guy who was not drunk of his own accord. He's not like some down on his luck, hard scrabble hero. He's not like John McClane in Die Hard 3 when he's like going through a divorce and he is on hard times and he is drunk on purpose. It's to watch a man who's like, I didn't even choose this. They did this to me. He's so drunk and he has to drive away.
It's really funny because his reactions and what you can tell that he's thinking about on his face is so clear, and it goes back and forth between like, okay, I need to focus because I'm driving and I can tell that I'm intoxicated, to reacting to something, to being confused about like, wait, why am I here? Why am I drunk? What is going on? To him, like almost being normal of like, I work on Madison Avenue. This is like a Tuesday afternoon. What do I care, right?
Right. We have to remember
downtown faces.
I'd love to see that edit. We have to remember he also has not recovered from the initial confusion of them being like, you're Mr. Kaplan. And he's like, no, I'm Roger Thornhill. I'll show you my ID. I don't know who that man is. Like, he's still as drunk off that confusion as he is off of the literal bourbon.
Yeah, and so just to see his reactions, just kind of like the waves in the ocean on the cliff that he almost drove off, just kind of ebb and flow and change, and it's a great scene. It's really funny, and then for him to like almost hit this kid on a bike, to stop, to have the cop hit him, and then the people behind them sandwich the cops in, and the cops like don't even react to the people behind them. They're just like, well, yeah, all right, let's go over here to this guy first. Yeah,
one thing at a time. And of course, you've seen everything that has happened, and you know nobody will believe him, and nobody does.
Right.
I love when he calls his mom and you just hear his side of the conversation, and he's like, Mom, they forced me to drink all this bourbon. No, they didn't give me a chaser.
Right. And then you hear him go, I don't believe it either.
The best part of this movie is this first act when he has to be with his mom. I had no idea this was in it. I want more of this, where it's just a normal man.
Great.
Normal man, not a spy himself, just a guy who's gotten wrapped up into this espionage crime caper, and he had to call his mom to bail him out of jail because he's been like divorced twice, and I guess his poor secretary is enough to do. He calls his mom. His mom is like not on his side. His mom's just berating him and making all these jokes at his expense, She's like, I had a bridge game to go to. He's like, great, then you'll save money. You won't lose anything gambling at bridge if you have to help me with this. And he has to like pay her to like ask for the key to get into somebody's hotel room. I love the idea of not only normal man dragged into circumstances beyond his control, but then he also has to drag in his mother, who doesn't, who is not a doting mom. She does not on his side, doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, and it to me it makes it funnier because I'm not sure how old he was when he filmed this, but this guy looks like he's in his mid 50s,
yes.
right? And so like I would expect like a mom to treat their son like that if it's like this deadbeat son, like dropped out of college, life isn't really going anywhere, like constantly asking for money or food or can you do my laundry, right? And like you're a horrible son, like blah 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 blah. But no, he works on Madison Avenue.
He's very accomplished.
Yes, he has a nice suit. It like he looks extra like. That is what the kidnappers continually comment on. Like, wow, he looks really good. He looks.
He's
dapper.
Handsome. He's tall.
He's handsome, yeah. And yeah, it's just the mom is just like, you're barely a son of mine. Like, I don't know what you. Yeah, do something with your life. Advertising? That's not going anywhere. Right?
I love the dynamic. I wish this was the whole movie.
It was so good. So good. So yeah, I really enjoyed that bit. And I don't think we lose his kind of sarcastic snark. Because you're right, he is just this kind of normal guy being caught up in stuff. Like even in the show Mad Men, Don Draper would kind of wander off sometimes and just go do his own thing and would maybe get into some trouble, but nothing like this, right? Where he gets it mixed up with some CIA Cold War conspiracy, like never that much. But even when he gets on the train and is still trying to evade them, like he still has that same kind of snark, that same kind of charm and chemistry with the woman that he meets. So do you have any thoughts on her character and her introduction into the film? I thought for sure we would have gotten her sooner, but she doesn't really come in until this like middle section.
It is a longer film. It's like 2:16, so we're still with her a feature film's amount of time.
Sure, yeah.
They are flirting immediately, but she's it's clearly her idea. I mean, later you find out she is a double agent, and some of it might have been an assignment to go flirt with this guy, but she's up for it. She seems very confident and self-assured. She is pursuing him as much as he is pursuing her. And they meet at this, they're both on the train and they're assigned to the same table in the dining car because they're both solo travelers. And it reminded me a lot of Casino Royale when Bond meets Vesper Lynd for the first time.
Sure, yeah.
And I'd gone into the movie with that framing device, thinking of this as a proto-Bond movie. And I can see how it influenced like those early Connerys. But I thought, I can see how it would have reached all the way to like 2005 when they're making Casino Royale too.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. It's interesting because I do think the actors have great chemistry. It is I know in Hollywood at the time seeing couples like this was maybe more common than it would be today, but to know that she is like 26 and he's like we said, like probably mid 50s is what he looks like. I don't know.
I feel like in older movies, folks looked so much older. I did not think she was 26.
Sure,
I
but
think
like
it's I think
the
it's just an
character
effect,
she's playing is
right?
26.
And looking at these older films when like people are styled so differently, you already feel unstuck in time. You're like, I don't know how old anybody is.
it's
And I know that was such a thing of the time, is let's use up these leading men for as long as we can and constantly get a new cycle of a leading lady in there. So
find
I
some
knew
new
to
blonde, find some new,
right. I knew to expect, just from this era, a very large
yeah.
age gap between the two of them.
Exactly, and that's not even like the point that I was trying to get at. I couldn't help but think of this kind of relationship in a much more modern context, where true crime podcasts and documentaries have taken the world by storm. And it like this reads to me as the picture of the murderer serial killer is out there, that they're just trying to find him. Here is a young woman who is into true crime, into serial killers, and just immediately is like, oh, that's him. This is my chance. Let's sleep with him. Right. And it's just like, this is kind of ridiculous too. Like, I think this is funny. I don't think it's necessarily meant to be. Like, I think their relationship is meant to be genuine, but it just kind of read silly in a more modern context. I was just like, this is kind of funny. So
I was surprised at the ratio of talking about romance to actual romantic things. Like, they're kind of making out, but they're mostly talking about making out. Like, they're still trading all these sexual double entendres at each other. And I'm like, you're already kissing. Like, you can be done talking. You can use your mouth
hands
for
off of the shoulders and do something else, right?
The touching was so strange. Like, he's got like his fingertips in her hair, and I'm like, you dig your hands all the way in the hair, or they're not there at all. Why are your fingers just sort of touching her hair?
It's not that he has like his hand like up behind, like supporting her head.
Like,
he has his like elbows
head.
up like over like. What is going on here? I know the room is small and cramped, but you can put your elbows down, dude. I don't know.
The blocking of their scenes together is very strange. And like, there's times when they're kissing when I can tell, okay, you just like, the two actors have their cheeks pressed together and they're kind of turned away from the camera.
Kissing, yeah.
Right. They're not really kissing. Understandable.
I know there used to be rules about like what men and women actors could and could not do on set in regards to anything kind of sexual. I don't know when those rules changed, when they went away. I was kind of wondering if there was something like that involved in making this film, because even when they do kiss, it's like, and not just in this movie too, but this is a lot of what you see around this time, is when they kiss, it's very much tight-lipped, closed mouth.
Oh yes,
and then
tight.
To portray passion, you just press your faces even harder into each other, right? You just smush your faces into one another even further.
All the talking, all the smushing.
Right. It seems like the most uncomfortable kiss that you could have.
Like it hurts.
Right? Yeah. Like he's like crushing her head into his, right?
Like the blocking is so strange. And they're like he's like a tall guy. He's got long limbs. And like, I understand it might be difficult to arrange these two, but surely there must be a way to do it. You know, there have been enough decades of film that you should know how to make this look more convincing. I Googled the Hays Code, which is the code you're talking about.
Okay.
It went from 1934 to 1968, but I don't know if it was firmly enforced all the way through 1968. I don't know.
That's
if
kind of what I'm wondering.
If loosen up,
things started to loosen up. I'm wondering if they only had a certain number of kisses they could do, or like no more than 3 kisses in a scene, or something like that. And that's why there were those ones that's like, okay, they're rolling when they kiss to block it, so they're not actually kissing, but yeah. So interesting stuff. I did like their chemistry though.
Yeah, another thing I experience when watching older films is I don't know what women were doing at any time. So when she says she was an industrial designer, I'm like, am I supposed to be impressed? Or is it like patronizing if I'm impressed? Like, how many women were doing that at this time, you know?
At least she's not written off as a secretary, right?
Sure.
I mean, she, like, we also just mentioned the show Pan Am, right? A stewardess is something she could have been. I was thinking about that too, because we described her earlier as a femme fatale, and I don't know how correct it is, but in my mind, I often attribute that to the right, just like here's the hot woman who's not really great at much. Maybe she's kind of clumsy.
You have a good. I don't know if that's true, but you have a good point in that a femme fatale rarely has an actual job.
Sure, or that, but then also for her to be a CIA double agent, like that seems very rare too, and especially for her to be as good as she was at that, and as confident in that role there, that seemed exceptional. Like that was just like, wow, that like I don't feel like the movie was ever looking down on her, or putting her in a position that was just like, oh yeah, she is the damsel in distress, right? She is. That's like, no, she's capable. She knows what she's doing. So
yeah, she feels sufficiently in charge of her situation as much as she can be, while still being subject to the whims of a plot. Yes.
Yeah. So I thought that was neat. That she's just not. Oh, she's a woman, and so women, they do receptionist things, and they do hostess, stewardess things, right?
Again, that's what we presume, but I also don't want to fall into the trap of, oh yeah, women were just like teachers and nurses and stuff in this year, and meanwhile there's thousands of dead women who are like, no, we had some real jobs then.
Yeah,
don't
they
look
absolutely
down at us from
did.
the future.
Yeah, no, they absolutely did. It just, especially in like Hollywood and stuff like that,
right.
it got this certain like trope of stuff. So to see her as this super capable character, right, is just like, huh, oh, sure.
Yeah,
and at 26, good for her.
Teachers and nurses and secretaries and flight attendants aren't like real jobs, but when you're watching an older movie, it feels sometimes like they did just pick from a word bank of traditional female jobs that you could put into a screenplay, And so it is nice that she does, even though this is one line, she never says a thing about her job, but industrial designer does feel very specific and very modern.
It does, yeah. Which I think matches her lifestyle at least, right? That seemed believable. She had on some great jewelry in this, that like red, not choker, but that like tighter necklace that was on her was gorgeous. So yeah, and she had on some great outfits too.
Great to look at as a whole. I love all the suits in here. My favorite genre of action is suit action.
Suit action.
Where the hero's wearing a suit To reference John McClane again, not like him. Not like tank top action. Suit action is the kind I like.
Sure, right, yeah. Which is interesting because the one outfit that he's in where he's not in a suit, where he's in the like bellhop is not the right term. But the guy that was like holding the luggage, he looked great in that. Like just as rugged and handsome and like, like he could have been the action star of some train movie here, right?
I love when he goes to shave in the bathroom at the train station and he's using her tiny like ladies travel razor that looks like it belongs in a Barbie playset. It's like 1 inch long.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is like exactly the type of comedy that was earlier on, right? And then he like marks out the like Hitler mustache thing, right? Which is just kind of funny too.
I was also a little surprised that the fact that women shave at all was something that was brought up in the movie. And it's not like literally discussed. He just finds that tiny razor in her stuff, and the gag is him shaving his face. But this, again, it feels like a time when they would have hand-waved away the woman and being like, no, they're like perfect hairless beings. What do you mean they own razors just like men do?
It's also, I mean, again, he works on Madison Avenue. Advertising is the newest, biggest thing. They're selling all of these ridiculous products to, like, you know, here's the, like, vibro workout machine that will, like, jiggle you out of...
Get the wiggle belt.
Yeah, exactly. So I can see, like, here's our travel size razor for women, right? And all of that. And she has this, like, travel set that she's bought, and he just happens to, like, well, I don't have any other razor and I need to shave. Can I borrow this? Right?
Doesn't Austin Powers have, like, the world's tiniest flip phone when he wakes up from the ice and goes to the 90s? He also has a phone that's 1 inch large.
Right. It's kind of dumb. It's ridiculous, but it makes for great comedy. Just like this awkward
big guy, little object.
Need to say anything, right? He's just sitting there next to the guy that has the whole straight razor, and he just kind of looks over at him. The other guy stops too, and they just look and is like, I guess, you know. So good stuff. Good stuff. I don't know if I have much else to say on like the train sequence or after that. Even the whole let's quickly talk about the scene when he's out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere and is being chased by a plane. What do you think of this scene?
So this is the image from the movie. I think even from a young age, I knew there's some Hitchcock movie called North by Northwest where a guy is chased by a plane. And he's dropped off in the middle of nowhere under the belief that here he's going to meet the actual Mr. Kepler or Kaplan, whatever the fake name is. Mm-hmm. So he thinks he's actually going to be able to meet whoever this guy is. And he is dropped off into the middle of nowhere. It is Kaplan. Dropped off into the middle of nowhere. And like, I think he was going to Chicago. So this is like rural Illinois or maybe over into like Indiana. And you, the audience, know the plane is coming. But the scene really takes its time with it. Mm-hmm. Where I can imagine, even if you were an audience member of that time, you know some threat is coming, but you don't know exactly what it is. So like car will approach, so they'll get excited and the car will just keep going. And you can see this like crop duster plane in the distance, but he keeps looking over there and the plane's not doing anything. And there's just enough. A guy comes out of the cornfield and he's just like a guy like taking the bus into town. He doesn't know anything. Like it gives you a series of very small red herrings. You're like, it's gotta be something. Which of these things is it?
It's also the tension of, like, he is legitimately in the middle of nowhere. There is nothing around. Mm-hmm. And he can kind of see, like, a city or some buildings in the distance. but it is like middle of the day. It's hot. He's in a full suit. Like, if he starts now, can he make that? Does he need to wait here all day? Will he be like awake or
Mm-hmm.
alive enough to then travel by night? Right? Is he going to be so hot and thirsty that he
Mm-hmm.
can't travel? So like, what do I do here? Right? There's just nothing. So yeah, it's just that like tension of I don't know what to expect. There's nothing around here. This could go
Mm-hmm.
bad in a million ways.
Yeah, and this is a movie full of big crowd scenes. The movie opens with just the hustle and bustle of New York City and perhaps literal Madison Avenue. And there's the scenes at the Grand Central Station and at the UN Center and like the crowd on the train station. There's a good back and forth between these big crowd scenes and smaller scenes where it's like just Cary Grant and his mom, or Eva Marie Saint, or James Mason, and all the other bad guys, or whatever. Uh, and this is the first time he's been like alone. He's completely alone in this barren wilderness. We act like this is the moon or something when it's
Right?
probably like an hour outside of downtown Chicago, and folks do live there. There is a bus stop, and a man wanders out. There is life here. Uh, but it's such a change in pace and in scenery. You're like, if you're in a giant crowd, you can easily imagine and rely on the threat is going to come out of the crowd. But with no crowd, with nobody around, like there's less for you to guess at. There's less for you to point at and predict and say, it's that. Oh,
There's
that
nowhere to
guy looks
hide.
sinister. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so and then the one guy points out, it's like, that's weird. They're dusting crops where there aren't any. And that's when we know something's up. It's like, okay, there's
Yeah.
something weird with that plane.
Almost as if
And
the pilot knew this old man said that and was like, well,
right,
my,
and right
my
on
jig
cue.
is up. Here I go.
It's like, oh, I've been made. Oh no. Yeah, and so this plane starts circling closer, and starts opening fire on them, or on him, and yeah, it is just this horror of there's also nowhere to hide too, right? Like there's no real
Corn.
crops. There's like some dried corn over here, but that won't last long. Like I can't really move in that, or he'll know where I am. Yeah, and then of course he just gets covered in pesticides and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
the plane is actually crop dusting something. It has the real stuff in there, presumably.
Yeah, which
So
is
even
then
if you're
really
not getting shot by a bullet, you are getting exposed to stuff that you shouldn't breathe
like
in.
chemicals and poison, yeah, and it's just stuff like that. Which then when later on in the film, when he then meets back up with Eve, she like immediately like comes to hug him and like puts her face like right in his suit, right where all the like
She's gonna
dirt
get
and
it.
stuff. Yeah, she's just like rubbing her face on his chest and getting all those pesticides up in her makeup, and it's great.
His previously established romance is just firm rubbing against non-sexual parts of the body.
Right? Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
rub your face
Um,
against a shoulder.
But man, this scene though is kind of spectacular. It is it's so striking because there's also like not much else around. There's nothing like visually to distract you. It is
Yeah.
the man and the plane, and it kind of
That's the image.
down, and he turns around and just has to start running.
And speaking of the long influence of this movie, in the most recent Mission Impossible movie, there's a technological threat that Ethan Hunt and his team have to avoid by going completely analog. And I know that part of the next movie, where they're continuing to fight that same threat, is a stunt on an old-timey biplane, just like this
Interesting.
one.
Cool.
Yes. That's the one
Uh,
thing I know about the next Mission Impossible movie is biplane stunts.
I thought you were gonna mention something else, but that is neat to know. I didn't know they were going like that old school stuff on the Mission Impossible
He
one.
has to ride one of those bicycles into a battle that's just like big wheel, little wheel.
Right? Yeah.
Regular bicycle, not analog enough. Must be oldest bicycle.
He steals one of the Wright brothers prototypes to go fly
from the Smithsonian.
Right, yeah. No, so also in Star Wars, in one of the recent sequel ones, I forget which one exactly. I think it's the episode 9-ish. There is a scene where Rey is out in the middle of a desert, and there is some TIE fighter interceptor, who knows what, that is chasing her in that same manner, and they have that scene where she stops and then kind of gets down low, knowing uh-oh, I'm gonna have to do something, and then turns towards the camera and has to run, and it's beat for beat. Though of course, Cary Grant does not do a backflip over the ship here.
He doesn't have the force.
Right? Yeah. But still, just a striking scene when then it hits this gasoline tanker that also happens to be flying by here. Just
driving.
a big explosion. Yeah, well, it is flying down the road. I don't know. But yeah, just like a scene that I think will stick in your mind. It's just a neat scene. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's good stuff.
I want to talk about the auction scene where he catches up to these villains at some art auction. And to continue to think about this in the frame of spy movies, there are often clandestine meetings at an opera or a symphony or something else like that. And I thought, interesting. This seems like it's part of that lineage, but I haven't seen an auction that many times before. I wonder what it is about an auction that specifically works. And part of it is that when the bad guy, Mr. Van Damme, just like the John Claude, he's literally bidding on a piece of artwork. He has his manservant there helping him. When he wins a bid, the auctioneer calls out that man's name, which I don't think Cary Grant knew until this point. So it's partially this is your meeting with the villain. You get to identify the villain. You find out later that they were bidding on some sculpture that has microfilm in it. And I don't even know what the microfilm is for. It's a MacGuffin. It really does not matter.
State secrets. Yeah.
All of that. But his scheme, Thornhill's scheme becomes to just do an auction wrong. Just do everything you're not supposed to do at an auction and piss everybody off and get in a fight and get dragged away by the cops. Because if they get him, the villain won't get him. Right. And it was a lot of fun to just watch somebody
just do everything wrong. Yeah.
Right. Just be completely belligerent, bidding the wrong number, bidding backwards.
$11. No, it's 1,100. No.
Calling everything a fake. You can't be 1,100. Somebody already bid 1,500, and he's just jumping all over the place. He's just shouting. People are turning around and shut up, let's enjoy the artwork.
Someone take him away. Yeah. Yeah, that was a good plan. It's a delight to kind of watch him, because he's not the bumbling idiot, but compared to what he's mixed up in, he is just kind of bumbling around, right?
He has no plans. He has to do everything.
Yeah.
He has to improvise everything. He's never been prepared or trained for this. And he's starting to get his feet under him the longer the situation goes on. But he is not of this world.
Right.
He's, trying to teach the world to buy a Coke.
But yeah, it's just a delight to see him try and do all of this spy stuff, and instead of like knocking someone out to get their outfit, just pays them.
Mm-hmm.
Right, or just like, well, I can't, if I try to leave now, the bad guys will get me, but if I get arrested, the
Yes.
cops will get me, and these guys can't get me. So that, yeah, right out of the frying pan into the fire, who knows, we'll see. 1100. um so yeah, that scene was good. But I think from about here forward is where the movie really starts to pick up, when they do actually like head to Mount Rushmore, and he's trying to convince her to leave with him instead of these bad guys. That's like, hey, maybe even though you were involved with them, you were double agent, secret agent, who knows what, maybe we did have something, and we can make something of
Mm-hmm.
that. And yeah, this is when like twist after twist starts happening. I guess there's not that many twists, but this idea that she then decides to shoot him as he's upset with her, and then it's a fake your own death kind of
Mm.
thing, and then yeah, they know that she's using a fake gun eventually, and
Yeah.
there's all sorts of stuff happening here. That I just like, it's just a stellar example of whether you want like a spy thriller movie or like a crime noir with like really intense action at the end. Like there's so much going on, and it's just kind of wild and ridiculous. And then they end up climbing all over Mount Rushmore in the heels,
I
right? Like, what
which
are you
and
doing?
the heel breaks immediately, and then she takes them off. And they're like, did you really need, again, I have so little context when I watch an old movie. I'm like, how normal was it for a woman to wear non-heel shoes? Were there a lot of flats in this time? What were her loafers? What were her options? Like, I don't know if that's a movie trick to just get extra drama into the scene, like she's wearing heels and the heel snaps, or if no, that was it. This
Yeah.
woman would have worn heels every single day of her life.
Yeah, probably. I don't know, but like, it's just also kind of ridiculous that that's their plan, is we can just scale down the faces of Mount Rushmore.
Just scramble on down there. So the
What?
villain's
Like, who?
lair, Van Damme's house, which is this stunning mid-century modern, fully Frank Lloyd Wright inspired house. I have this, one of my prized possessions is this massive, ostentatious coffee table book called Lair: Radical Homes and Hideouts of Movie Villains. And as soon as I saw it on screen, I'm like, that one's in there. I bet that's
Yeah,
in there.
it has
And I
to
got to
be.
flip through. Yeah, it's a beautiful one. And the book talked about how they wanted Frank Lloyd Wright to do it literally, but it would have taken like 10% of the whole movie's budget. So
Yeah,
they had to design something similar and do it with a mix of matte paintings. What a masterwork in matte paintings this movie is. That huge matte painting of Mount Rushmore, I think you can see at the Academy Museum, like the
interesting.
Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, the
Yeah,
Oscars folks. They have this big museum that just opened up in LA in the last couple years. And I think that's part of it. So you can
that's
see this
cool.
like 100-foot painting. But the house is matte paintings and models and just comping things together into the frame, and like interior sets on a sound stage somewhere. But it's a great set. It's got so much drama in it. At one point, Thornhill's sneaking around when like everybody else is gone and there's only like a housekeeper left in the house, and she sees his reflection in the TV.
An absolute great shot.
Not
Brilliant.
only is it a beautiful shot, this is 1959. This is probably the first time anybody used that.
Yeah, wild.
And then it would go on to, you know, more films. I don't know if we get a lot anymore now that with like flat screen TVs are so matte, but there was a time.
Well, the last time I truly remember a shot like that was Signs.
Right. Signs is the one I'm thinking of, and I feel lame because I can't name another one besides Signs.
There's probably other ones out there, or stuff like. But I'm also I guess like specifically thinking TVs and not like someone's glasses or a mirror or
right.
something
you
like
get
that.
that more often. A phone screen, smartphone screen, glossy. You can see a reflection in that. I think we're missing it with the flat screen TVs and everybody having these 60-inch behemoths that are on the wall over their mantelpiece instead of being like a 14-inch glass cube that's like 2 feet off the ground.
Yeah, that's a great shot though. But yeah, they try to make their escape, and the like front gate is locked. They can't really get out, and so yeah, they have to scale the faces of Mount Rushmore, which I don't think I would have ever thought of that as an option. I'm sure they have like secret tunnels or something up there for like maintenance purposes, maybe.
Not sure.
But I don't know. I've been to Mount Rushmore, so I've only been on that balcony where he's like looking up in the like binocular thing there. That's as close as I've gotten. So I don't actually know if is that stuff up there for real. But it never would have occurred to me that to be like, hey, to escape, let's go climb on these faces.
And that's the point of the whole film. They started with escaping by scaling down the faces on Mount Rushmore, and they worked backwards the series of different set pieces and plot points.
Yeah.
It is so striking. Not just that as a backdrop and using it in that way, but it's filmed, or at least comped in. Of course, this didn't happen for real. It's partially like on extreme close-ups, they're just crawling across like big, great stonework, fake foam stonework on a sound stage. And other times, like you can tell it's a matte painting or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're seeing this very recognizable image that you're used to seeing at one angle. You're seeing it from like underneath. You're seeing like the bottoms of their jaws and up their noses.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird for sure. What did you think of the ending of this film here? Because it is this like real perilous moment where she's hanging off the edge, can barely reach up to grab his hand. It looks like the bad guy is right there to like step on his hand to then knock both of them off, and then he gets shot. The bad guy that's about to kick them off. And he dies and falls over and stuff like that. But then it just kind of cuts, and it's just like the end. And we get the final sequence is this picture of them on another train, both dressed in white. He has the bandages on his knuckles from where the guy stepped. And they seem to be, quote unquote, living happily ever after. Maybe they're about to get married or something. Who knows what.
No, he calls her Mrs. Thornhill now. They are married. I think the white pajamas indicate they are on their honeymoon. The way the final scene goes is, so the villain's already been taken out. He like falls off a cliff or whatever. All that's left is that she is dangling off a ledge. He's reaching for her. And he's like, grab my hand, I'll pull you up. And she's like, I can't make it. And he's like, no, you can. Just grab, reach. And then it's like a match cut, or like this sort of interesting transition where he pulls her up. And instead of seeing him pull her up onto the ledge, he pulls her up onto the top bunk of like a little train sleeping car. He's like, well, now, here you are, Mrs. Thornhill. And then they like, there's like winks and nods. And then you see a train going into a tunnel as the final image. We all know what that means.
that's I think what I'm trying to get at and ask. Did they live or did they die?
Oh, they lived. That's not heaven. That's Bone Town. They're only going to Bone Town.
I don't know, because there is smash cut.
People, heaven and Bone Town are the same.
Right. Look, I'm not arguing that. But the way it cuts and transitions to, because if they are married at that point, why does he still have the bandages? Right? Wouldn't time have passed? I
don't know. I guess they eloped. Like, after you save each other's lives from a villainous James Mason, you just go elope.
Potentially.
By the powers invested by the state of South Dakota.
This feels like an ending that is like Inception to me, because I feel like it can go either way. I'm serious.
Really?
Like,
I've never heard this theory that they're dead at the end.
You could, because all right, so they're both in white, this like this angelic color of
also this
white.
Like this. I understand, but I think it also is meant to read as
ending.
Like honeymoon.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying, is that it can read as both of them. Is that it could be they're dead, and this is kind of the afterlife. This is their ideal ending, what they would have wanted to happen. Maybe their kind of final thoughts. Who knows what? But it doesn't show you that death. So that's not necessarily the case, and it could also be that they eloped. They're married now. They're on their way to their honeymoon, or on their way home to New York, or who knows what, and they lived happily ever after. It's just not clear. It's not 100% clear because you don't see him pull her up off of that.
Yes. If this was if this was a modern movie, I don't disagree with you. I just think it's funny that you're playing fourth dimensional chess when the movie is only on checkers.
It's Alfred Hitchcock, though, right? He's good at that stuff. He's smart.
And I look at this and I'm like, don't you show a train going into a tunnel? That's vulgar imagery. I'm here with my mother, Mr. Hitchcock.
Right? Yeah. Anyways.
It's also very much how a lot of Bond movies end. That is a very Bond ending. How did we get out of danger? Who cares? I'm going to bone this lady. There's going to be a double entendre on some sort of transportation. The sexiness and the transportation. Most Bond movies end with him boning on a submarine or a yacht or a rocket.
It's like the end of Dr. No, where he just takes the boat with her and escapes, right? And it's just like, all right, I guess he's off to you know what with you know who. All right. I had a blast with this. I do think the end is abrupt. I like that transitional shot. I like the ending, but it does also just feel abrupt, especially with the speed that third act is just kind of moving with. Oh, and then he got shot, but they faked his death, and they found the gun, and they know that, but she doesn't know, and but now he's here, and now, right? It's just, and done. I wish there was just another minute or two. Like, I don't need much, but just something to kind of ease that transition a little more.
I understand. Yeah, that there could have been a minute of, thank goodness we got out of that scrape, and now we both work for the CIA, and they're gonna station us somewhere where your mother can't come bother us. 1959 stuff.
Yeah, indeed. This was
a lot of fun.
Great. A lot of fun. Indeed, I highly recommend it. If you still have not seen it, go check it out. Go watch more of Alfred Hitchcock's stuff.
Yeah, I don't know him. as well as I ought to. I know a lot of them by reputation, but I've only seen Rear Window, Rope, Psycho, and the 90s shot-by-shot remake of Psycho, which we did that as a double feature once. Psycho and then remake Psycho, right immediately back to back. And it is a wild night when you do it that way.
Interesting. Okay, there you go. Good stuff. Well, let's see here. Let me pull up our bingo cards so we can get on to review show bingo here. Getting this guy to load so I can pull it up on screen. There we are. Here's our bingo cards so far. Nobody broke into dance. We don't have an actor from Lost. No red string conspiracy board. How do we feel about the long exposition followed by why are you telling me this? We don't get that wording exactly, but because of the mistaken identity, you kind of get that.
No, the trope is there for things like, to mention Lost, a character will suddenly jump into this long story from their history that's supposed to mean something. And the other character is like, why are you telling me this? And it's clearly like, now is time for exposition, or why am I telling you this? Think about it, Charlie, and think about how you need to stop taking heroin or whatever.
Because, Batman, now that you are in my death trap, you will never escape.
This is something I've seen frequently, where it'll be time to learn about a character's backstory and they'll just start talking. And the other character's like, I don't know why I needed to hear that. It's that. I don't think this case of no, you've got the wrong person fits.
I agree. Actually. But I do have Villain Lair, which we were just
big time
talking
Villain Lair
about. So I'm going to mark that one down.
I don't have that this year.
So here's another one that could be up for debate. I'm also leaning towards no on this one, but how do you feel about Poison? They get him really, really drunk, and I know you can get alcohol poisoning, but he doesn't have alcohol poisoning in this one.
Alcohol's alcohol, poison is poison.
Indeed.
You can put poison in alcohol, or vice versa, I guess.
Yeah. Right. If they had poisoned his alcohol, then
exactly.
would have been one thing.
But if it's literally just bourbon to the gullet, that's just straight up bourbon.
I think that's all I have then. Just a Villain Lair.
I have Clandestine Meeting at Theater, and the auction is similar to that trope, but not precisely. Especially because they are trying to get something like from the auction. When like villains go to the opera is rarely the point of it.
Yeah, and he's not supposed to meet them there. He had been following them there.
Mm-hmm.
Too. So
well, like the hero can crash a villainous meeting, like in Quantum of Solace.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Whichever one it is where Bond goes to all the Quantum members talking in secret at an opera.
I think that might be it.
Yeah.
For our bingo check-in here. Villain with theme puns.
No cow.
No, yeah. No cows.
Gotta get a cow.
Unfortunately. So yeah, I think that is about it for our bingo update. Melissa is still the only one with points on the board. She got one bingo. I got none, but I am inching closer. So there you go. That is our bingo update, which means, Melissa, for people who enjoyed this, what else might they like?
I did talk about the James Bond movies a lot. Those are a personal favorite of mine. I called out the similarities between the meeting on the train in this movie and the one in Casino Royale. But
Hmm.
From Russia with Love, which is the second ever Bond film back in the Connery era, that also has a lot of train sequences on it.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite film YouTubers, it is a channel called the Royal Ocean Film Society, hasn't posted in a while. Hope that creator is doing well. Maybe actually is working in film. That's why they're not updating
Maybe.
a YouTube channel about film. They have a video called James Bond, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. And the thumbnail is North by Northwest, the first 007 film. And that is a shot-by-shot comparison of the biplane assault in this movie against something very similar in From Russia with Love.
Cool.
Check that out. That's a video that definitely inspired me to watch this movie. Thank you, Royal Ocean Film Society. I saw The Fugitive for the first time earlier this year.
Okay.
Not a case of mistaken identity, but a case of being framed for a murder. Also, nice set pieces in that, moves well.
Yeah.
Action-packed, The Fugitive. When you talk about... when I see Mount Rushmore, I think, I know that from National Treasure 2, Book of Secrets.
Okay, yeah.
Both National Treasure movies are great fun. I caught these on like TNT with my dad the other weekend, and he shares the opinion of all people in why didn't they make a third one of these? Where's my third one?
I know, right? Speaking of, we covered both of those right here on the review show on episode 212. And then I'll just go ahead and shout this one out since we've already mentioned James Bond quite a bit. But we covered Dr. No on episode 123.
Oh, that feels so long ago.
I know,
wow.
Right?
I know Martin Landau as this old conspiracy theorist scientist in the X-Files movie, Fight the Future, the one from the 90s. And I was shocked that he's so handsome playing the henchman in this movie. The X-Files, Fight the Future, also has a great corn escape sequence where our heroes need to escape by running through a cornfield.
It's a classic trope. That might be something we have to add to our
it
list
ought
of
to be.
Potential bingo stuff.
Oh, definitely corn. I love a good corn sequence.
Corn or tall plant escape scene.
Right. Could be, I don't know, soy. I don't know other real tall plants.
Something
Sunflowers. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm a big X-Files fan. I really love that Fight the Future movie. It's such a good summer movie. I would love to find a spot for it on our review show list this summer, because if not, we have to save it until next year, because it is a true summer vibes movie in a way that you wouldn't expect.
Good stuff. Cool. Well, so for my first recommendation, earlier this year, we read a comic book called The Human Target.
Yeah.
Which is a very much, the artwork in this book is very much styled like this, like these like 1950s ad men, advertising stuff, femme fatale. It's a crime noir story in which the main character, Christopher Chance, is hired to pose as Lex Luthor to root out some would-be assassins. But as he's rooting out those assassins, he does actually get poisoned by... Which, did I... That's straight. I don't have poison marked on my thing, but there's definitely poison in this one, which we
missed that
year.
one. Then you can count it off.
I
now.
may have to go back and fix that one.
We've issued an erratum.
Yeah, but he ends up being poisoned, and then has to solve his own murder because he has 12 days to live. The artwork in that one is spectacular. I highly recommend that book. It is a great one. Let's see. I mentioned Mad Men. Go check out that show. It's a phenomenal show. Um, if you want more suits like this, more fancy dresses and jewelry, if
I
you want a
love
little bit
that.
more actual sex action, there's also a bunch of that in Mad Men as well. That is just a phenomenal show. And then yes, please go look up pictures of January Jones in Mad Men.
Okay.
She looks exactly like her in
Oh,
this movie here.
I've never watched Mad Men, which is surprising considering that I'm the number one shouter about actors who are from St. Louis, and John Hamm's one of the primary ones.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. And then I never remember his name, but the actor that played Tony Stark's father originally,
John
uh,
Slattery.
yeah, that's him. He's
Or like
in
the
that
the
too.
his old father, not his young father from
Right? Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Captain
yeah,
America.
yeah. Yeah, he's in that. Yeah, go check out that show. That's a fantastic one. Yeah, more James Bond stuff. The Sean Connerys would be great. But there are plenty more out there that you can check out. Um, what else? More Alfred Hitchcock. So I've covered Rear Window, I believe, on one of the old Whatnauts podcasts. Um, so that's available on our website. But that one I think is maybe my favorite Hitchcock movie.
Rear Window?
Rear Window, yeah, I love that
That
one.
is a
That one's
fun one.
fantastic. And yeah, it's kind of one of those the things of just like for a movie basically set in one location. It's intense. It is like you're on the edge of your seat the whole time as he thinks he witnesses
Mm-hmm.
this crime and tries to solve this mystery. Yeah, it's a fantastic one for sure. But yeah, I think that's kind of it for my recommendations right now. Of course, go see The Legend of Korra if you want more of Eva Marie Saint.
Watch The Legend of Korra. Catch up on the Mission Impossible movies so you can see those
Yeah,
biplane stunts next year.
that's another good recommendation too, because I feel like just them kind of scaling around Mount Rushmore feels like something you would get in a more modern action film, like Mission Impossible or something like that. So yeah, good stuff, good stuff. But I think that is my recommendations for this time, which means we need to introduce what we are covering next episode.
Yeah.
So we are going to be diving back into the world of comics, and we are going to be reading Chew volumes 1 and 2. This is one of the first indie books that I started to get into when I was in college and started collecting and started reading comics once again. I've talked about it a number of times on many different podcasts, just kind of in passing, just like, oh yeah, that reminds me of this one thing in Chew, blah 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 blah. So I know I've mentioned it to Melissa a lot, and it's kind of stuck in your head of like, there's that book Chew. Maybe we should read that at some point.
I knew the concept beforehand, which is that it's about a detective who can eat something and taste its memories. So if he finds a dead body, he can cut off like a little sliver of skin and put it on his mouth, and he's like, I saw the victim's last image. This is how we will find the killer.
So he actually works for the FDA. He is not really a detective. He is an agent of the FDA. They live in a world where chicken is illegal. Yeah. But he does have these food-based powers where, yeah, if he eats any kind of anything, he gets like a psychic impression of like its last moments or something like that. So if he eats a cheeseburger, he can get like an impression of the cow's final moments, where the cow was, like who the people were. So he can like see the guy that slaughtered the cow and stuff like that. So yeah, the FDA then sends him on a bunch of weird crime solving cases where he has to eat a bunch of gross, disgusting stuff, like someone's toe or something like that. And then he can get the like psychic impression of what happened to them and stuff like that. But it's really funny. It's weird. It's wacky. The artwork is a lot of fun. If you are a fan of Lost, there are a few references to that, including the two main character designs. I won't say much more on that right now, but yeah, it's an interesting book for sure. So we will be checking out the first 2 volumes of Chew, which I believe we are both going to be checking them out on the Libby app, right? Or Hoopla. Hoopla, yeah, that's the one. So yeah, if you have a library card, I'm sure you have access to Hoopla as well. I think you can find it on there. I believe it's also on Comixology Unlimited, if you want to check it out there too. But yeah, this is a book that I liked and enjoyed a lot. So go check it out. But that's what we will be up to in 2 weeks from now. So good stuff. Good stuff indeed. Yeah. Well, I guess that about wraps us up for this episode of the show. Melissa, did you want to shout out your brand spanking new email address this time here?
I'm not a social media person. I got tired of not having something to plug when Kyle had something to plug, or I'm like, I have it, but I don't really use it. You can email me. I'm going old school. You can email me at yourhostmelissa, MELISSA, @gmail.com.
There you go. Good stuff. Yeah, old school, like the biplane in the next Mission Impossible movie, right?
We can only communicate via email now.
Exactly. Well, if you guys want to follow me, I am at Yo Kyle Springer on Threads. And if you want to stay up to date with all of the stuff that we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at the Whatnauts official on Threads. So please go like, share, and subscribe. That would help us out a ton. If you're watching this on YouTube, we got plenty more videos for you right over there on that side of the screen. That would help us out as well. But yeah, this has been number 293 of the Whatnauts review show. We will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.